Hey guys, it's Tom from Texas and it's time for another Floppy Deep Dive. And today we're going to be doing another edition of What's on That Floppy. And I got some floppies here, still going through case number 2, checking them out and trying and loading up these games for the first time in 30 years. I know I have a lot of people who enjoy these. The games being bad or good, doesn't really matter. Just checking out the retro games from the past and seeing what they were creating. Might be the first time you've ever seen some of these games, or you might have played them all the time. If you have, put some comments down there which ones you like. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. All right, so go ahead, pull up a chair, grab a joystick, and let's get started. So on this What's on That Floppy, we're going to be looking at 5 different games. And the first one we're going to be looking at is William Wobbler. And William Wobbler was a game that came out in 1985. And it was released by Wizard Development, and it came out on the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum. And it's basically was a puzzle game. You had to go and find 10 pieces of the puzzle that was hidden throughout this whole landscape of the different caverns. You get chased by this woman with a club, like a cave woman or something. And at the time, this game came with a second disc labeled Competition Disc. So when you completed this whole thing, you could send it in and you were awarded an undisclosed prize for the first entry that they received. So whoever solved this game first got a prize. And according to articles and stuff that I read, it said that it was around $1,000, which was huge in 1985 if that's the case. But so this is William Wobbler, and the graphics are alright, and you might be familiar with these kind of graphics. This was written by Anthony Crowther, I guess is probably the right way to say it, and made lots of games for the Commodore 64. Made Potty Pigeon, Kilowatt, one we just looked at, that Gryphon was one of his games. Wanted, Monty Mole, Blood Blaster, Bat Attack, just a lot of Commodore 64 games this guy worked on. One of the ones I liked was Suicide Express, which was a pretty cool game of his. So he's been still making all the way up to, looks like 2011, worked on the Harry Potter games, the Burnout Paradise. So very been around programming for a long time. But back to this game was just the graphics are good, but gameplay after a while, to me, it just got boring. You just did the same thing over and over again, looking for the puzzles and so forth, and just wasn't that great of a game. I would give it 2 floppies out of 5. And the next game that we're going to be looking at is Adventure Master. And Adventure Master, so 1984 was the year this adventure came out, and it was supposed to be allowed you so you could write your text adventures with graphics. So it gave you a chance to kind of do your own thing and create them yourself. I always just played the game that came with it. I thought that was, basically fun, but you could do different things and work on different things, from the rooms to the passageways to what was in the different stuff. So there was a lot of different things you could do with this. Again, I was not another big text adventure guy, so it really didn't catch my interest that much. I thought it was okay. It was different, and besides playing someone else's. But again, text adventures, you were so limited on what you could say and so much on the different words that you could actually put in that actually made sense and so forth. So again, just wasn't the most exciting game. Different, just a little bit different. Like I said, you could create your own text adventure games, and I didn't never see anything like that before. But again, just playability and so forth and getting into it. Never really got into this. Again, I'd give it 2 floppies again out of 5. Just because it was unique and something different. So let's go ahead now and let's look at the next game. So the next game that we're going to look at is Kentilla. Kentilla was a game that came out in 1984, and it's a text adventure game that was written by Derek Brewster, another British developer, and it was later released by Mastertronic, so it became one of those budget games where you could get it at a pretty good price because all those Mastertronic games were cheap. But the interesting thing here with Kentilla that a lot of people don't know is that Rob Hubbard was the music composer and created the score for the Commodore 64 version. It's also out there on the ZX Spectrum and the Amstrad version, but they didn't have any music. Only the Commodore 64 had the music. Some of them I did, some I liked, like The Hobbit and so forth that we've seen at. But this one, I thought it was just kind of generic. Nothing really too exciting about it. I could tell it's definitely a budget game. And again, I would give it 2 floppies out of 5. Just was okay. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game. So next we're going to be looking at a game called Gyroscope. And Gyroscope is very much like Marble Madness. It's pretty cool looking, where you could control the gyroscope through this different maze. And basically you got to stay within the bricks and this patterns and not fall off or run into walls or hit different things. And so it's pretty hard. I just had a hard time trying to stay on the pathway and not fall off. I did try to load it up on my Atari Fight Stick, because I have a trackball, and see if I could play emulation of this game and use the trackball of it, which was actually pretty cool and pretty fun to do. So trying it with the trackball and play it that way was definitely challenging, but it was definitely challenging I tried it with keyboard and joystick, and I just had a hard time staying on this thing. I think it's pretty hard. It came out in 1985. They made it for the Amstrad. They made it for the BBC Micro. They made it for the ZX Spectrum. It's a single player game. And this was released by Melbourne House, who actually would go on and publish the official ports of Marble Madness for the ZX Spectrum and Amstrad. But these were not based on the Gyroscope game. And like I said, it's very similar to Marble Madness, except the player controls the spinning gyroscope rather than a marble. It's kind of in a 3D pattern like those come in. So it's like I said, you got to avoid the potholes and the aliens and the glass slopes and because you touch certain things, it'll make your gyroscope spin in random directions. So it's a pretty hard game, but I actually liked it. I think it was a pretty good one, and I would give this one 3 floppies out of 5. So let's go ahead and look at our last game. Now the last game, I always called it Snodger. But then when I did some research to see, I see that it's actually called Snodgits. Snodger is someone that's in the game, and this came from the United Kingdom. And this is just an odd game where you're basically, it takes place in the Snodger's family mansion, and you're trying to solve the mysteries. But in basically different things like who stole ice cream from the fridge or who spilled ink on the carpet, that kind of different little things like that. And you're trying to run around. There's some humanoid monster kind of following you around called a Snodgit. And the graphics, as you look at them, they're very large and caricature in appearance, and it's just very, very weird. And you actually control the butler, Benton. And that's who you're responsible for bringing the family members the items they want. So while you're going throughout, the Snodgit's telling you what the different people want. I did not get very far in this game. I found it to be very odd and not the most exciting game. This whole floppy isn't the most exciting floppy, but I'm not skipping any of them. I'm looking at all the different games, and you know, sometimes you get classics, sometimes you get cool ones, sometimes you get surprises, and sometimes you just get a bunch of 3s and 2s and 1s on the floppy scale. And this floppy definitely wasn't a lot of highlights in it. But again, like I said, I'm not skipping any of them. I'm going straight in the order that I collected them, and I have no problem sharing it because it's all just part of the fun, checking out these games and learning a little bit about them. So let's go ahead and get this all wrapped up. So I hope you liked it, guys, and I hope you liked my new rating system of 1 to 5 floppies, 5 floppies being the best and 1 being, of course, the worst. I hope you enjoyed seeing these games, or you might have seen something you never seen before, or something you used to play and it just brought back memories. So until next time, thank you for joining me on another Floppy Deep Dive.